Last week, Governors Newsom
We do it every week.
and Pritzker
I want to speak plainly.
both gave press conferences to push back on Donald Trump's attempt to invade their states to purportedly conduct law enforcement.
It was just one day ago when President Donald Trump declared there'd be a surge in federal troops in Chicago. Today, the president is walking that back.
I want to go into Chicago, and I have this governor that doesn't want us. So we're making a determination.
I want to talk about the differences between the two.
Governor J.B. Pritzker said staging began this week at Naval Station Great Lakes, preparing for expected immigration raids during Mexican Independence Day celebrations. He still expects operations to begin this week.
Because, well, many lefty pundits are very excited about Pritzker's press conference, I will argue that Newsom's was far more effective for reasons that lefties really need to understand.
It's a point of profound and consequential contrast.
But before I do that, I want to take a step back and scold both of them and scold lefties generally for the way they're responding to Trump's efforts to invade blue cities. Because, you know, there's this big debate, oh, well, consultants say you're never going to beat Donald Trump on a tough on crime line. And the way in which the pollsters are conducting those polls, they're right.
Data shows that reported crime in D.C. is down over the last year. But a new AP NORC poll finds that it doesn't necessarily match up with people's perceptions.
Effectively, what Donald Trump is doing is he's doing the same thing he has done with immigration.
They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime.
He's inflaming the stats.
We will begin the process of returning millions and millions of criminal aliens back to the places from which they came.
He's talking about it all the time.
On immigration, you better get your act together, or you're not going to have Europe anymore.
He's crime.
President Trump repeated his claim that there is no crime in D.C. So we did some fact checking, and just 24 hours ago, sadly, a man was shot and killed near the Brentwood Rec Center.
Generally, it is hard to respond to that effectively. But what nobody is considering, what no one is doing, and this is where I think we need to get, is saying, where the fuck does Donald Trump get off claiming to be the one to be tough on crime?
So, look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have.
Not a single Democrat should speak publicly about Trump's attempt to invade blue cities without mentioning that Trump is himself a felon.
Guilty on 34 counts in his hush money trial.
It's also the first of the 4 indictments against former President Trump to actually reach trial.
They're going after Lisa Cook for mortgage fraud. Well, Trump was already adjudged to have lied to get loans.
Judges in 2 courts have now found that the President of the United States took part in a years-long fraud that deceived financial institutions about his net worth.
Trump is a rapist, or at least a sexual assaulter.
They're saying no to rape, but yes to sexual assault. Where do you think the disconnect is there?
I think the disconnect is that E. Jean Carroll, and Katie, I'm going to ask for your pardon here because I'm about to get graphic. E. Jean Carroll said that she couldn't really see whether Donald Trump was penetrating her with his genitalia.
Trump pardoned hundreds of cop assailants and freed a number of adjudged terrorists from prison on his first day on the job.
More than 1,500 that were pardoned, including more than 175 who had either pled guilty or been found guilty to violently assaulting police officers. And when he was asked about this, the president last night at the White House, he essentially sidestepped saying that he would look at each individual case, but the pardon is final. And these individuals have now they have been released through the prison system and are now formally pardoned.
He continues to pardon other fraudsters who are cozy with him. Corey Mills, the investigation into him was dismissed in D.C. for domestic violence.
Langston says she left Mills after news broke that another woman who was living in Mills' Washington, D.C. home accused him of assaulting her.
And Donald Trump is in the middle of a cover-up of sex trafficking.
So I ask you, President Trump and members of Congress, why do we continue to cover up sexual abuse and assault? Who are we covering for?
Donald Trump moved one of the worst child predators in recent history from an appropriate prison to a minimum security camp in Texas, close to schools, to shut her up.
Sources say Maxwell told Blanche, who until recently was Trump's personal attorney, that Trump did nothing in her presence that would have caused her concern. After the interview, Maxwell was moved from a federal prison in Florida to a minimum security camp in Texas with more favorable conditions, a rare move for a convicted sex offender serving 20 years.
To hide aspects of his and Melania's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein?
That's how we should start every single response to this.
Donald Trump determines what the political will in Washington is. He has insulted and threatened his followers who won't drop the matter. Just today, he threatened fellow Republicans who would continue to pursue it. And I think all this points to the fact that the magnitude of this scandal must be unfathomable, because Donald Trump couldn't act more guilty if he tried.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein?
That's how we should start. Barring that, we've got the interventions from Pritzker and Newsom. And it's important to note that both of them...
What President Trump is doing is unprecedented and unwarranted. It is illegal. It is unconstitutional. It is un-American.
Said precisely the same thing.
Is this America? Are we losing our country? Have we lost grip with reality?
A lot of people are like, oh, this is about confrontation, and finally Pritzker is confronting people. One of the underlying issues is that some of Newsom's policies suck, especially his transphobia.
Gavin Newsom criticizing transgender athletes who participate in women's sports during the debut episode of his new podcast.
People don't want to like Newsom because they're already thinking in terms of 2028. And so they're like, well, Pritzker is confronting Trump as well.
If it sounds to you like I am alarmist, that is because I am ringing an alarm.
We can get behind him for 2028. And it's like, fucking A, people, thinking in terms of 2028 is a luxury we do not have. Both men confronted Trump's effort. Both men clearly laid out that the goal here is not to engage in criminal law enforcement. It's not to get rid of crime.
This country needs to wake up to what's going on, and not just the authoritarian tendencies, but the authoritarian actions by this president. This cannot be normalized.
The goal is to invade blue cities.
This is about the President of the United States and his complicit lackey, Stephen Miller, searching for ways to lay the groundwork to circumvent our democracy, militarize our cities, and end elections.
Both men substantiate that by pointing to the fact that crime is higher in a bunch of red states. Pritzker listed those off well.
8 of the top 10 states with the highest homicide rates are led by Republicans. None of those states is Illinois. Memphis, Tennessee, Hattiesburg, Mississippi have higher crime rates than Chicago, and yet Donald Trump is sending troops here and not there? Ask yourself why.
Both men spoke of Trump in terms of authoritarianism. Pritzker even said, I know about the Holocaust, and I know Trump looks like the Holocaust. So the content of these two speeches was largely the same. And that's important for people to know.
Yes, we're putting a mirror up to the lunacy that is Trump's tweets and his grift. The madness.
I did a post a long time ago where I laid out that lefties and journalists think of language very different than the fascists that we're fighting. Lefties and journalists believe that language is transparent, and therefore they believe language is about persuading, and if you persuade well enough, lefties believe if they just persuade Chuck Schumer to be less feckless, then he will be a better leader. Whereas fascists don't give a shit about persuasion.
It's an administration that's always believed in alternative facts. In fact, facts don't matter, illusion rules. That's why the chatbots at Fox are so successful at night. Shape-shifting. Facts don't matter.
They give a shit about using language to structure their society, to inflame passions, and to create their own reality.
The privilege of the writ of habeas corpus can be suspended in a time of invasion. So I would say that's an option we're actively looking at. Look, a lot of it depends on whether the courts do the right thing or not.
They not only don't care about the truth, they prefer when they can just make shit up. You need to understand that difference to understand how to respond to Trump effectively. And Newsom, in a couple of recent interviews when he's been describing why and how he's doing this trolling,
I think there wasn't one particular moment. I think it's a process that unfolded over the course of many months.
He described that from the start of this term, when Donald Trump unleashed the water sluices because he basically undermined California's fire response by intervening in California's water control processes.
He was transitioning back into familiar talking points about water policy in California and completely lying, misrepresenting facts and truths, and advancing myths that were popularized on Fox and One American News and Newsmax and on right-wing blogs.
Newsom at that point realized he was constantly having to fight misinformation. Then when Trump invaded in June, Newsom started to respond differently.
Again, I'll remind people, the President of the United States sent 700 active duty Marines to Los Angeles, federalized 4,000 National Guard indiscriminately at that same moment. What you watched was a poor guy selling strawberries, hardly on the list of the most dangerous and vile criminals that we had to attack.
And I tracked it then. That's when he really started trolling Trump.
It was attacking free speech, assembly. It was attacking the rule of law.
He didn't stop doing regular kinds of messaging. And even then, he gave a very good press conference that the same lefties who ignored everything else were like, oh, finally a press conference that I like. He also went on Fox. That's when he really kind of redoubled his efforts to go on influencers. At this point, it was all men. That's changed. So you could see he was trying a bunch of different things. But one of the things he started doing at that point in June was to start trolling Trump, and especially Stephen Miller. And the difference between these two press conferences between Newsom and Pritzker and their effect, Pritzker's got some attention, but Pritzker, in the middle of his press conference, said,
"This is not a time to pretend here that there are two sides to this story.
Do not both sides this. Do not this." And I'd say at least half of the coverage of it, both sides did. They said, well, Pritzker says this, Donald Trump says this, Pritzker says this is why Donald Trump is using this legal. Journalists don't have the tools right now to say this is fascism. Pritzker is warning us.
President Donald Trump hedging today on whether or not he will deploy the National Guard to Chicago to fight crime.
Governor Pritzker is saying that he won't give the president the invitation he's been asking for.
What's the problem with fighting Trump just on the facts?
You can't fact check a fascist.
As Pritzker did, if you say, these are the facts are 8 Republican states have a higher crime rate than Chicago. Even as he is telling journalists not to both sides the story, he is inviting them to both sides the story.
Was this statement true? Was this statement partially true? How could Trump do this? How could Musk think this?
Because what he is doing is he is saying, here's our set of facts. Donald Trump's set of facts or claims are not true. Here's our set of facts. And journalists almost cannot do anything but both sides this, because you have to present the two truth claims. Yes, you should eventually say Pritzker is right. New York Times actually did an article saying Pritzker is right. But when Newsom says Mike Johnson is ignorant because Louisiana has a higher rate of crime than California, he's speaking factually. That is true. But it is about power.
He can name drop me all he wants.
It is about Mike Johnson's dishonesty, right? It's not about here's my set of facts, here's Donald Trump's set of facts. It's about I've caught Mike Johnson lying to you about his own complicity and not dealing with crime. It feeds to the distrust people have on media. It feeds to the conspiratorial thinking people have on media. It feeds to the need for emotional hits on media. It feeds to power structures on media.
It's not gratifying. It's very cold comfort. But on some level, I get it, because I've been paying attention to pro wrestling for 30-odd years now.
So while Newsom is using facts, and in fact, when I wrote a post on this, people believed that Pritzker was presenting more facts than Newsom, and that's not true. Newsom's was just as factual as Pritzker's was, but it presented facts not in a here, you're wrong, here are the facts. It presented facts as part of a power struggle.
Pro wrestling is the language and the mindset that best, I think, explains the rise of American fascism.
It presented facts in the context such that people who have distrust in these competing sets of facts will have a way to connect with Newsom's claims, not because of the factual claim, which is true, but because he dickwags Mike Johnson, because he makes Mike Johnson look complicit and stupid. And that's the kind of wrestling side of it.
Trump understands from pro wrestling that spectacle, that meaning what you say, even if you're saying a complete lie, is much more important than telling the truth.
That's the oh, boom, he really got you, Mike Johnson. And the facts then become just a component of it, but they are packaged in a way that people on Fox News, on Shitter, will consume in a way that they otherwise would never consume, in a way in which they otherwise polarization would absolutely bar them from even considering.
Everything you know about the authoritarian tendencies of the President of the United States.
What do you think of that, Charlie?
The guy is such a faker. He's such a fraud. It's so absurd. Who has time to come sit down and make up all of these tweets?
So Pritzker's efforts to get the press to cover this differently failed, except on lefty outlets, I would say. He's getting coverage, but he's getting the kinds of coverage he wants only on lefty outlets. The rest are both sidesing it. Politico, for fuck's sake, instead of covering any of this fascism, instead said Pritzker is losing weight and Donald Trump is taking notice. That's the kind of shitty journalism we have.
People are noticing. You've obviously lost weight.
I guess so.
Newsom, he's adopted Trump's all caps tweeting mode. And it's actually not him, by the way.
More accurately, his staff.
People have lost the ability to distinguish what Newsom does and what the press office does. And that has gotten a lot of attention. And you know, routinely on Fox News now, they're already debating, oh, I don't think Governor Newsom's efforts are authentic.
Why am I giving him advice?
And it's hilarious because what Fox News is doing is saying...
he's ridiculous. He's completely unserious.
Newsom posting in all caps is ridiculous.
You have to stop it with the Twitter thing. I don't know where his wife is.
Without then thinking, right, but that's what we disseminate all the time with Donald Trump. By the way, one time last week where Pritzker tried to confront Donald Trump directly, he did one of the things that drives me fucking nuts about lefties is he just screen capped the latest Truth Social post that Trump posted and responded to it. And I argue that that, in fact, reinforces Donald Trump's power by making him the center of attention again.
He's trying to pretend to be Donald Trump. Gavin is also attacking Fox News hosts. He's trying to bait conservatives into social media fights. He's actually referred to our own Tommy Lahren account as Yelp for toilets. Gee, very clever and funny.
And what Newsom is trying to do is disrupt that center of attention.
It's getting hard to watch.
So he has this presser, and there is news to the presser. The news to the presser is, I'm going to ask CHP to do X, Y, and Z on criminal law enforcement.
We're here to talk about some of the efforts that have been underway since 2019 that were accelerated in early 2023 and continue throughout the state of California.
There was a question.
Governor, is this in response to President Trump talking about, or is it to prevent the possibility? When President Trump talks about deploying more National Guard troops to more cities, is this part of a response or to prevent that from happening?
But the first 7 minutes of the press conference got typical attention. California outlets said, here's what the CHP is doing. So he gave them a news hook. This was in his office rather than in the press office where he normally would hold a press conference. And he set it up to look like one of Trump's stupid cabinet meetings, right?
I would have the right to do anything I want to do. I'm the president of the United States.
It was him and 3 top law enforcement officers. And so it kind of borrowed from Trump's aesthetic.
You'll hear from the folks to my left and the right in a moment.
And again, about 7 minutes into the press conference, Newsom was kind of playing with a stack of papers in front of him the whole time. He pivoted and he said, I should note, just if
he is to invest in crime suppression, I hope the President of the United States would look at the facts. Just consider Speaker Johnson's state and district.
So he starts laying into Louisiana, which has a far higher violent crime rate than California does.
Just look at the murder rate. That's nearly 4 times higher than California's in Louisiana.
Now, this is something that Newsom has done for years. Every time right-wingers say California is X, Y, and Z, Newsom always says your state has a higher crime rate than California does. And he's been doing that again on Twitter as things have ratcheted up. He did this with Senator Langford the other day, and he's like, I'm really alarmed that Senator Langford doesn't know about the crime in his own state. So he's both calling out right-wingers, but he's doing it in a way that suggests these right-wingers are inadequate, are not adequately responding to crime. It's a different power thing. So in the presser, he does the same thing. He has pre-printed flyers for a number of states, Louisiana, Missouri, Mississippi, there's Arkansas. And he lists up this flyer and he says,
Speaker Johnson, 4X higher.
And he says
I'm just offering this, again, you've not seen this on Fox News, so President may not be familiar with these facts. So I want to present some facts to the President of the United States. And imagine this is alarming to the President to learn these facts, particularly Speaker Johnson, who's been such a strong partner and ally in these efforts.
He does exactly what Pritzker did from a content perspective. Pritzker said, crime is higher in these other 8 states than it is in Illinois. But he does so calling out Johnson himself, calling out Fox News for covering up the fact that crime is worse in other states. And then also saying to Donald Trump 2 things. One is, you're fucking ignorant of anything you don't see on Fox News, so I am going to tell you these details because you won't learn it from Fox News. And second of all, he says, now that I've given you the facts.
If the president is sincere about the issue of crime and violence, there's no question in my mind that he'll likely be sending the troops into Louisiana and Mississippi to address the unconscionable wave of violence that continues to plague those states.
Governor Newsom is so much in Fox News' head that this actually worked. Johnson was on a live appearance on, I don't know what show it was, the next day, and they actually asked him, this is what Governor Newsom said about you. And they clipped Governor Newsom describing that Louisiana has a higher crime rate than California. And Johnson's answer was frankly pathetic.
Gavin Newsom will do anything for attention. He can name drop me all he wants. He needs to go and govern his state and not be engaging in all of this.
And Newsom then responded on Twitter saying first that it was word salad and then reminding what the stat was, repetition, 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 repetition. By the way, Fox did not include where Newsom said.
You've not seen this on Fox News.
Then Newsom did a couple of other things, one of which was, look, the crime is higher in these states. These are your states. These are red states. If you actually care about crime, Mr. President, then you would do something about your people who are being subject to crime. And the appeal here, it's all factually based, right? It's no less factual than Pritzker's appeal. But the structure of communication is wildly different because rather than speaking to the press, Newsom is is ostensibly at least speaking to Donald Trump.
Yes, we're putting a mirror up to the lunacy that is Trump's tweets and his grift.
To Fox News, to Mike Johnson. He is putting them on the hook for their failures on crime.
Look, we have crime in cities all across America, and we're against that.
He did also describe, and this didn't get picked up, he did also describe that
it was the CHP working with LAPD that were protecting the National Guard.
That didn't get picked up. But the point is, the content is the same. Crime is higher in other states. Here's what we're doing to combat crime. Donald Trump's motives are actually authoritarianism. But what Newsom is doing is shifting the authority structure. It disrupts Trump's authority. It disrupts Trump's ability to just keep flooding the zone, as he has done with Chicago. And as we speak, the Texas National Guard is deploying outside of Illinois, preparing to invade Chicago.
We are all kind of like stuck in this purgatory of preparing for things that shouldn't happen.
Which will be another legal catastrophe.
We're not going back.
It's not just about the facts, though. Again, both governors were talking about the facts. It's about a power structure. It's about a means of getting attention. It's about speaking to people outside of Newsom or Pritzker's normal readers. I mean, again, lefties loved Pritzker's speech, but his speech was useless to independents, the people who might buy this tough on crime argument. It was useless to the constituents of Republicans, to the Guard members being deployed by Republican governors to D.C., who need to learn that actually they're being used as a campaign prop. As we move forward, this doesn't settle the legal issue. Charles Breyer did issue an order saying that Trump was violating the Posse Comitatus Act in California. That's going to lead to appeals, and we're in real trouble on the legal front. But on a political front, what Newsom is doing is attempting to get attention from people that we need to peel off. He's also undermining the entire premise of Trump's argument. He's undermining the way in which Trump communicates. And one way that you combat authoritarianism, it's not just sarcasm. Again, a lot of lefty pundits think that this is just humor. It's not just humor. It is about identifying, pointing to how Trump creates his spectacle of power, pointing to the means by which Trump creates spectacle.
The madness that is someone that would dress up as the Pope and tweet that out, or put his face up there on Mount Rushmore in a Superman costume. President of the United States.
In addition to the humor is an important part, but the all caps thing works, not because it's funny, though it is. I especially like when he beats up on Kid Rock. It's because all of a sudden it looks fucking absurd.
So I do think it's important to put that mirror, that lens back, and have everyone reflect on it and say, well, have we accepted this as normal?
This goes to my gripe about the way people treat Trump's Truth Social posts is the notion that journalists or Pritzker actually will just screen cap Trump's posts and respond to it as if he's in the room, or as if this is a statement of truth or this is a statement of power. All of that reifies his power. Whereas what Newsom did is he took it and said, holy shit, what you guys are doing, the way you're treating Donald Trump's Truth Social post, it's fucking ridiculous. And the notion that you respond to power, the notion that you respond to this stuff like puppy dogs is ridiculous. It's just spectacle. And so that's the difference that I'm trying to argue between speaking truthfully, forcefully, and confrontationally, as I think Pritzker really did. And I loved the speech, and I think he's a great politician. And communicating in such a way that destabilizes the entire structure of Trump's spectacular power.
It's getting hard to watch.